Welcome back to the next part of my play for Red Dead Redemption. If you guys are enjoying this series, do drop a like.
Dale, que ustedes son putas y lo saben.
Por favor, no me obligas.
Oh, mi amor, nadie te está obligando a hacer nada. Solamente quiero que animes al hombre que va a salvar a tu padre. ¿Tú quieres a tu padre, cierto que sí, linda? Huh?
What's going on here, Captain DeSanta?
Just a little recruitment. Nothing for you to be concerned about.
You boys using women soldiers now?
Our costumes are none of your concern.
Apparently not.
¡Santo mariconcito! ¿Me encontraste algunas chicas? Ay, mamacita, ¿dónde has estado toda mi vida? Ven, ven, mujeres. Ay, me gusta.
These two patriots were keen to make your acquaintance, mi coronel.
Fantastic. I love patriots. Hey, John Marston, you here to fight the war? And we shall make a patriot of you yet.
I hope so. Any word of those men?
Watch his eye contact on this
I heard
part.
they were riding with Reyes. I wanted to talk to you about it. De Santo, hable con
He's
él.
not telling
Tell
him the
what I
truth.
wanted,
Hable con él, that means
El
speak with
coronel would
him.
like to employ you in escorting a train down rebel country. The job is dangerous, but you'll have the honor of
Mira.
Another patriot?
knowing that you served Mexico in her fight against forces that would destroy our society.
How much you offering?
20,000 pesos. And information as to the whereabouts of Javier Escuella.
Okay then.
Mexico loves you, Mr. Martin.
She has a funny way of showing it.
Hurry! We must go! Vámonos, muchachos!
So I understood a bit of what they were saying back there, but I didn't want to translate it because it's some pretty bad stuff. Colonel Olende is a rapist. He's a horrible human being.
Gringo.
And there was me, thinking my dance card was full.
What do you mean?
Just that it's a pleasure to see such a noble patriot at work.
Your sarcasm is childish and pathetic. This is an important assignment. Our orders are to deliver these munitions to Chuparosa. They will help to finally crush the rebels.
I hate to break it to you, Captain, but I think you're gonna need a lot more than this.
I know. Most of the supplies are already in Chuparosa. We will deliver them all by train to our base camp in Diez Coronas. Our forces are close to establishing control in that region.
So, these...
Why didn't DeSanta come with us?
Why do you think? Because he is hardly a soldier. I'm sure he has other important business, like mailing letters and sweeping floors and flirting with barmen.
He fought with
Are
you
you
at
defending that
Torquemada.
pathetic little errand boy? I did not see him fight. Without me, we would have lost the battle. He knows less than nothing on how to lead men.
Yet he's the colonel's second in command.
That is a good joke. You are a funny man, gringo. De Santa licks the colonel's boots and plays with his waiter friend. That is all. I am Allende's brazo derecho, his right arm. I am one of the few men he respects.
Is that right? You and him have something special, do you?
The colonel needs a maid, a woman he cannot fuck. De Santa is that woman.
So I don't know why so many YouTubers, they just skip these dialogues. They're pretty important if you listen.
Tesoro de Azul? Now that was some fun. Am I right, gringo?
Fun? Burning people's homes, killing innocent people? That's your idea of fun?
When a woman picks up a rifle, when a child picks up a rifle, they become soldiers. Those are the rules of war.
They ain't my rules.
So you would allow a woman to shoot you? That makes you an idiot, not a gentleman. Does it seem quiet?
The thing about that is, you would have to ask yourself, why are people picking up guns and shooting at you? If even kids are
I'd say
shooting
that's
at
a
you,
good thing, wouldn't you?
if even kids realize that you're the bad guy, then you're doing something really, really bad at that point.
Una emboscada! ¡Abre fuego! proteger los perversos. Están muertos, cabrones.
Okay, there we go. Got him.
Good work. I cannot see any more of them. That was close. I don't know. This doesn't feel right to me.
We're on our way to escort a train through rebel-held country. An ambush feels about right to me.
Soldado, ¿quién eres? ¿Cuál escuadrón?
Soldiers, what
Somos
are...
nuevos reclutas, capitán. Es nuestra primera asignación.
I knew I had not seen these men before. They are new recruits. In Escalera, people have been talking about the rebels planning a large attack. If these supplies are so important, why have we been given so few soldiers?
Don't ask me. You're the captain. I thought you were supposed to be fearless.
I am fearless, but not brainless. There is something wrong. I feel it.
Maybe you just need to take a piss or something.
The colonel told me that the Santa had praised my actions at Torquemada and called me a hero. He asked for... It's another ambush!
Is that our train?
Yes, it seems to be on schedule. At least one thing is going right for us.
I agree. We ain't off to a good start.
You shoot well, Gringo. Tell me something. What is your weapon of choice?
What do you mean?
Come, my friend. Your belt is full of weapons. Which is your favorite for attacking a man? We are close to Chuparrosa now. I still have a bad feeling about this. Tell me, why are you here? What did they promise you?
20,000 pesos in Javier Escuela.
That is a lot of promises.
Do you know where Escuela is?
You think I am going to tell you that before you have fulfilled your obligations? Do not take me for a fool.
I'm giving you no reason not to trust me.
You must understand why we are suspicious of you. Most American vigilantes come here to help the rebels. It is strange you have chosen to work for the army.
I'm not working for you. How many times do I have to say this?
Call it what you want, Gringo. We are exchanging favors then.
I ain't seen many favors come my way yet.
Abraham Reyes is trying hard to recruit gringos to fight for him. His propaganda is everywhere. He promises women, gold, and, of course, you come. Money and the chance to interfere in business that is not your own. How can any American resist? Here we are, at last. Soldados, abordamos el tren.
Soldiers aboard the train. That part I did understand.
I do not think we have seen the last of the rebels. New recruits can't win a fight like this. I need you to man the Gatling gun.
I ain't the soldier here, Captain.
Do not question me, Gringo. Just do as I say. ¡Ándale! ¡Ojos abiertos! Take your position now! I hope you know how to use that gun.
Can't be that hard. Just point and pull the trigger.
For you! We will
My
all
god, that's what that
kill.
means.
Don't worry, Captain. I've used one of these before. For a cold-hearted killer, you're an anxious son of a bitch, ain't you?
We have already been... Why are you aiming at me? I think it is right to be anxious.
Yeah, well, I wasn't exactly expecting a pleasant picnic by the seaside myself.
So here's the thing about a Gatling gun. This is what a lot of people are very surprised by when I tell them this. But in my country, in the United States, a lot of states you actually can buy a Gatling gun. It obviously depends on the state. But automatic weapons in the US, and automatic weapons when you pull the trigger and the gun will just keep firing until it's empty, are illegal. For the most part, since the 1930s, you can get them with a specific license, Class 3, but you need to be like a museum, running a TV show, some specific reason for that. But the Gatling gun, regular civilian can get that no problem. Now, you're probably wondering why if automatic weapons, are illegal. The reason that a civilian can actually get these is because this is not an automatic weapon. It's a crank weapon. So it runs in a crank. An automatic weapon, remember, you hold the trigger and it just keeps emptying until it's out. But this, you have to keep turning the crank or else it's going to stop shooting. It's multiple barrels, so it doesn't technically count as an automatic weapon. That's why when you watch Pawn Stars, in Pawn Stars, for example, there was 2 Gatling guns on that show. One of them was like an authentic, Western Gatling gun. Rick didn't want to buy that one because it was too expensive. But then there was a British Nepalese Gatling gun called the Bira gun, and Rick purchased that. The reason he was able to purchase that is for 2 reasons: because it's counted as an antique, it's made before 1899, and secondly is because it's not an automatic weapon. So people think this is a machine gun. It's not actually a machine gun. It's not an automatic weapon. It's just crank. So yeah, a lot of places, a lot of states, you actually can own one of these. And for the most part, what I've heard about Gatling guns is that Gatling guns are actually pretty fun to shoot at targets. But the thing about them is that they're very inaccurate, and they're also very expensive. But not only expensive, but you'll be wasting ammo, because ammo will go through these things really quick. Okay. They're boarding the train. Oh, great. More than halfway there right now. Yeah, it's better probably just to shoot their horse. Probably the best way to get rid of them. You know what's so weird? This drive is taking us to America, technically. I think we're good here.
Pero ¿qué haces, idiota?
That was madness.
You did well, compadre. Very well. Whatever Allende promised you in return, you have earned it.
I don't think the Santa expected us to come back from this.
Did you want to kill him, or should I?
No. Until I find Escuela, he's more used to me alive.
So they have an army camp here. Kind of strange place. It's like a very isolated place to have the base. I mean, unless they think the rebels are getting supplies from the US, then that would make more sense to have a base there. But having a battle this close to like the border, even in that time period, would have caused an international incident.
Here we are. Thank God. We are lucky to be alive. Go to the camp. The base commander will want to speak to you.
Dios mío!
Senor Marston, thank you for your efforts. The escort was a success.
At least some of your men survived.
I didn't think to survive myself. My whole life I have dreamed of a glorious death. Vamos! Rapido antes que nos ataquen otra vez. These socialist pigs cannot be allowed to win.
Pesa mucho.
Está bien, mamá.
It's okay, mother. It's okay.
Señor Marston. Mamá, papá, este es el gringo que me salvó.
Muchas gracias. My family's indebted to you.
Very much thanks.
What's happening?
Great and terrible things. The revolution is coming. The country will be in turmoil once more. This time, we hope is the last time.
Does that seem likely?
With Abraham Reyes, anything is possible.
Where's your family going?
My parents and my brother are headed to the hills. My sister has to flee. The army have an unfortunate way of treating women.
And you?
Don't worry about me, Mr. Marston. I'm living in history. I'm not afraid to die.
Your nobility's almost as affecting as your naivete.
I would rather be dead than a cynic like you, Mr. Marston.
I would too.
I know you're not really like that. You saved me.
Luisa, ¿quién va a salvar a Miranda? Tenemos que llevar al puerto. Su barco sale al anochecer. No queda tiempo.
Mr. Marston, can I ask one more favor?
Wasn't able to read that
Can
in
you take
time.
my
It was
sister
too
to the
quick.
yacht?
If I read it slowly,
We're
I can
sending her
translate
to work
some
for
of
a
it,
kind
but
man in the Yucatan. She's too young for revolution.
Okay. Anything I can do to help out?
The boat leaves at sundown. Miranda, vamos.
if any of my translations are bad, guys, just let me know in the comments. I've been studying Spanish for, you know, several months now, and I'm trying to learn another language, a third language, and, you know, I study, 10 to 20 minutes a day, and hopefully, by the end of the year, I can have a much greater understanding of the language.
Paren!
Papers?
Este camino está prohibido.
This is prohibited.
What do they want now? Act normal. It's nothing to worry about.
Te conozco. Eres un pinche rebelde.
It's a rebel?
¡Disparen! ¡No le dejen escapar!
That last part I didn't understand.
You ain't gonna leave here walking, friend!
Dios mío! That wagon is going straight towards
That means my god.
Take the left here and stay away from them. This is a... ¡Que viva esta! the army, or they will kill us both. I see more of them. Go right here. ¡Qué demonios!
What something? I didn't understand the other word.
Keep going, we can make it! Cielos! I see more by the train tracks. Go to the right! Faster, we cannot slow down!
Okay.
They are still chasing us! Get rid of them! Look! Straight ahead! Quick, take this left!
Crap, that's a machine gun.
Veer right! Go left! Get rid of them! We're so close! Look! Over there! They are still here! Gracias a Dios! We made it!
Thanks
in
to God.
time. Thank you for everything. Will I see you when I return?
Not likely. I ain't planning on staying very long.
In some other life, then.
Maybe. You should get going. Travel safely.
Oh, Mr. Marston. Mr. Marston.
What's wrong, Louisa?
I don't wait for myself, but for my country. Abraham Reyes has been captured.
He has?
He was coming to meet me at Roca Madera. It's a very romantic spot. It was a beautiful night, yet he was ambushed by patrol. My heart is breaking, but I cry for Mexico.
Where's he being held?
El Presidio. You know, in our hearts we are married already, but his family do not approve. How could they, when I am little more than a peasant girl? But that's what makes Abraham the man he is. He doesn't care for their bourgeois, snobbery, or elitism. He sees the real me, the woman.
I'm sure.
I'm going to go and rescue him or die trying.
Oh, whoa. I don't think that's such a good idea. Ride with me to near the jail. We'll figure out how to rescue him.
Mr. Marston, you're truly a friend of this land.
So everyone keeps informing me.
So about Reyes,
Let's go, Mr. Marston.
Reyes we have been we have been hearing about him a lot. We haven't seen him yet, but we've been hearing how he's this great hero, you know, savior of the poor. But when you actually meet Reyes, he's a completely different story.
We haven't got time for this.
Now, what I'll say about this is, one thing that history has shown us is that, almost all countries in the world, all over the world, it doesn't really matter the time period. If you have like this massive economic inequality, and you have like this huge group of elites that are controlling society, and you have such a gap between the rich and the poor, and people are starving, at that point everything's being thrown on the poor, that is pretty much a brewing ground for revolution. You are going to have a revolution there. That history has shown us that that's happened so many times in history. You know, it's happened in America during the Revolutionary War. It happened in France during the French Revolution. It happened in Russia. It happened in Mexico. And that's just a few examples. And sometimes the revolutionaries that come to power actually end up becoming worse than the people who were in power beforehand. And so you're probably wondering, why do people turn to revolutionaries if they're really unknown what kind of people they are? Sometimes the revolutionaries turn out to be good, and they do a lot of good things for the country. Other times they turn out to be really bad people, or just as bad as the people that were in charge beforehand. The reason people turn to revolutionaries is because they're desperate. It's because the people that are in charge are doing a really crappy job, a really terrible job, and they're hungry and they're poor. And so you can't really blame somebody for being, you know, on the side of a revolutionary. But sometimes revolutionaries are the good guys. Sometimes they are. They do mean well sometimes. But other times, you can have some really bad people come to power. And that's basically what history has shown us. Now, the worst thing that a government can do, if there's a revolution going on in a country, the absolute worst thing that any government can do when it has a revolution going on is to try to brutally put down the revolution. If a government tries to brutally put down the revolution, that's the worst thing that they can do, because all that's going to do is that's going to create more rebels. The best way to handle a revolution, when a revolution has happened, is to sit down with the revolutionaries, find out exactly what they're pissed off about, what is the problem, try to negotiate with them, try to give in to some of their demands. And that way you can avoid a civil war. However, though, a lot of these people, these elites that are in power, a lot of times they don't want to negotiate. They think they can just do everything through brute force. They don't think they have to give any kind of concessions whatsoever, anything. And so, like in Mexico's case, for example, all the revolutionaries really wanted in the Mexican revolutions is they just wanted the poor to have more of a say in the government. They wanted land reforms. They wanted programs to help the poor. That was all they wanted. If the government had negotiated with them, they could have probably found some kind of compromise, but they didn't want to do that. And so it was, you had multiple revolutions that happened during this period. It wasn't just one revolution in Mexico, because there was one administration that would come to power after a revolution. They would do some bad things, and then you have another revolution after that. And for example, Reyes is a parody of a lot of the corrupt revolutionary leaders during the Mexican Revolution. Now, the government, the dictators that were actually in power, I think his name was Diaz. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. But the Mexican dictator, he was a really bad guy. But the thing about that is that Reyes, you know, even though Reyes is a fictional character, he's a parody of the fact that a lot of the revolutionary leaders in the Mexican Revolution were very rich people. If you look at the leaders of the revolution in Mexico, they were leading oftentimes poor people. The revolutionaries, typically the bulk of them, were typically poor people, lower, working class people, but the leaders were typically very rich people. And that's what Reyes is a parody of, is that you have a really rich guy that's leading a bunch of, poor people. So shouldn't the representative of them actually be a poor person, not a rich person? Luisa, she would actually be a really good leader of Mexico. Her heart's in the right place. She's not corrupted by anything. So she would actually be the ideal leader for Mexico. Not somebody like Reyes, not somebody like Allende, who are both scumbags. But you guys are going to see Reyes in a little bit. But, I can tell you guys about my country, for example, the United States. During the Revolutionary War, a lot of Americans, we didn't just openly start fighting against the British. That didn't happen. We actually tried to negotiate with them beforehand. We had events that were leading up to the revolution, like you had the Boston Tea Party, you had the Boston Massacre, and you had the Olive Branch Petition. The Olive Branch Petition, that was basically a petition to King George. And that petition was asking King George to give Americans the same citizenship rights as the British, and give us an equal same parliament. That was basically all they wanted. How did King George respond to that? He called the Americans traitors. And One thing that a lot of people don't know about the American Revolution is that Americans were never really British. A lot of people think that Americans used to be British and then we became Americans. That's not true. Now, our ancestors, you know, going back hundreds of years ago, a lot of them did come from Britain, and they were British at one point. However, though, when our ancestors had kids, and their kids were born here, their kids were not referred to as British. They were actually referred to as colonists. They were called the colonists. And so if you were an American back then when you were under British occupation and you tried to call yourself British, they would say, no, you're not British, you're a colonist. And that's like you're already creating an unequal, you know, structure, like an unequal barrier between, you know, the British and the Americans. And you're saying you're being ruled by the British, but you're told you're not British also. And you see, that's what begins to piss people off. That's how the American Revolution starts growing. And the unequal representation in Parliament, you know, the high taxes, having a king, you know, thousands of miles away trying to tell the country what to do, it pissed people off. And so eventually this evolved into full-scale fighting. And what ended up happening is near the end of the Revolutionary War, the King George sent a delegation to America. This is, you know, after France had gotten involved in the war, Britain was going to lose the war at that point. What happened was, you had, during the Revolutionary War at the start of it, 40% of the country was about patriot, that's the rebels. And then 30% were loyalists, which were loyal to the British monarchy, and 30% were undecided. They didn't know what side they were on. By 1780, about 70 to 80% of Americans were patriots, and 20% were loyalists at that point. So why did the amount of loyalists and the undecided people drop? Why did the patriot numbers, you know, go up so much? The reason they went up so much is because the British, instead of trying to negotiate with us, they just kept responding with more force every time. And they brought in things like the Hessians. They brought in the Hessians, which were, you know, the Hessian soldiers themselves were more, the soldiers themselves weren't mercenaries, but their leaders were mercenaries. So they brought in, like, you know, foreign fighting force, for example, you know, to fight against the Americans. And, you know, stuff like that really pissed Americans off. It really got to Americans. And when the British were really losing the war at that point, the King George actually sent a delegation to America. And in that delegation, he actually told the Americans, we'll give you everything you wanted. We'll lower your taxes. We'll give you equal representation in British Parliament. You will be British citizens. You won't be colonists anymore. But please stop the rebellion. You know what the American response was? No. It was basically go to hell. And the reason the U.S. rejected that offer, even though they originally wanted that, is because the Revolutionary War had gone on for years and years. And at that point, the British were losing. They got desperate, and so they tried to give in to the rebels' demands at that point. If they had given the Americans those demands at the start, given us the same equal rights as British citizens, you know, lowered our taxes, given us representation in the British Parliament, not referred to us as colonists anymore, but as British, then we would have stopped the revolution. It would have ended then and there. But because we'd fought for so many years and so many people had died, we wanted to be an independent country at that point. And so King George at that point lost America. He realized that it's better to trade with America than try to put down a rebellious colony, because even if Britain somehow won that war, even if they did somehow win the war, they would have had an insurgency that would have gone on for years and years, and Britain was pretty much bankrupt at that time period, so they really had no choice but to let America go at that point. So that's basically how Britain lost America. It was with the brutality of it. It was the fact that if they tried to negotiate, then America would have never seceded. But it was the fact that they treated us so badly, and we got pissed off and revolted.
You should be able to scramble over it. Hurry, but please be careful. There are guards everywhere. If they see you, they will kill you both.
Well, if he's alive, I'll try to make sure he stays that way.
I have some friends waiting for me near the river. Bring Abraham there. Good luck. You can do this.
So yeah, that's basically what I was saying, guys, is that if there's a revolution, the best thing a government can do when there's a revolution is to negotiate with the rebel leaders, try to find out why people are pissed off, what's the reason. And most revolutions in history happen because of economic inequality and because of lack of food. When people are hungry and they're poor, that's when you're most likely to have a revolution.
Nadie va a llorar por ti.
Okay. Oh, he survived that shot? Okay. There we go. We're good.
Hurry, my friend, set me free. Victoria! Now please cut me free, senor. Luisa sent me. We have to meet her by the river. ¿Qué? Luisa, the girl
K
you
means
married.
what? Who? What?
Oh, yes. Such a devoted thing.
No, K means what? Yeah. So he said Laura instead of Luisa. He doesn't really care about her.
Let's go. Let's go, my friend, before the army returns.
Luisa sent me. Vamos, date prisa. The army's coming.
Cuidado, behind you. Damn, almost felt that one.
Okay. I think we're good now.
Mira, I see more in front of us. Un día voy a gobernar este país. ¡Ya! ¡Viva Reyes! ¡Viva la... Name, my friend. John Marston. No, the American who was working for Allende. I ain't working for nobody. I'm here because Luisa asked for my help. As I thought you were a friend of Allende's, I was planning on putting a bullet in your back. Well, try to resist the urge. How do you know my young lover, Laura?
Lara.
It's Luisa. I saved her life not so long back. I will not forget this, compadre. You will be rewarded. Money, women, Luisa if you want her. I'm here for 2 men, and that's it. You've been spending too much time with Captain De Santa. Very funny. Not like that. I'll explain later. I am free again. I will write a poem about this day. This is from a man who was tied to a post with a gun in his face a few minutes ago. I wish I could see Allende's face when he finds out that I defeated 100 of his men. All you've done is get on the back of this horse, my friend.
Luisa y Zapaje. Buena suerte, compadre.
Good something, comrades.
There she is. I remember her now. Mi amiga.
Abraham, Mr. Marston,
Oi!
the revolution will live on thanks to you.
Yes, indeed, John. You are as a brother to me. And my people need a man such as you to help our cause. My ranch is in Agave Viejo, and let me say, my brother, that we await you.
Well, best of luck to both of you, but I need to find 2 men so I can return to America.
No problem. I will help you find those men. And in return, you will win a people her freedom.
Viva Mexico!
¿A dónde tú vas, bella? ¿Eh? Bye, John. Vente conmigo. Tú sabes que en esta luz puedo ver el fuego en tus
Yeah, this part I don't understand. I understand some of the words like you and what. Laura.
fuerza para luchar.
He doesn't care about her. So Reyes, like I said, is a parody of the incompetent leaders during the Mexican Revolution. It's kind of sad because during the Mexican Revolution, you had people that all they wanted is they just wanted a better life for themselves. Poor people who were desperate, and so you had some really bad people both in the Mexican government and the revolutionary leaders. And so, that's all I'll say is generally the Mexican army in this game is a pretty villainous, and the leaders of the Mexican army are pretty bad people. But the rebels, on the other hand, the rebels are pretty good people, but the leader of the rebels is a really bad guy. So that's pretty much about that. I think my game might have crashed here, or stuck on this infinite loading screen. Yeah, and I had to replay some of these missions too, earlier because my recording actually crashed earlier, and so it's wow that and now the game is crashing itself here. But basically one other thing I wanted to say about history and revolutions is that a perfect example I can think of like a revolution that comes to power and it gets much worse later on is, for example, during the French Revolution. The French Revolution was actually a good thing, and the French people were justified in overthrowing their monarchy. Their monarchy was corrupt. You had the monarchy and the aristocrats, you know, hoarding a lot of the wealth in the country. You had the poor, which they were being taxed like hell. They barely had enough to get by, and the aristocrats were paying virtually no taxes. And what happened was when the French Revolution first happened, the monarchy, King Louis, agreed to a constitutional monarchy. Now, what ended up happening later on is that did King Louis try to help his people? No, he didn't. A lot of people think the French king was innocent, but he wasn't. He was guilty of a lot of the stuff that he was accused of. What actually happened was the king's wife, Marie Antoinette, she was from Austria, and so she was plotting with her cousin, who was I believe he was the king of Austria, to invade France to restore the monarchy. So the French king, instead of helping his people, was plotting with a foreign monarch to invade his country and put the revolution down. A lot of French people would have died in that, and that's why they executed Louis for that, for treason. And so what ended up happening is after Louis was executed, then France became a republic. It was no longer a monarchy and a constitutional monarchy. And what happened was you had the extremist people from the revolution, Robespierre, come to power. Robespierre initiated the Reign of Terror, you know, the guillotine just coming down, cutting people's heads off. Robespierre was the one who did that. And Robespierre, basically, he was an extremely paranoid man. He believed that if you disagreed with him slightly, you were counter-revolutionary, and you had to be killed. And that's it's just so sad that people just wanted better lives for themselves. The poor just wanted better lives, but the revolution in France got so bloody and so violent. And so you had bad people on both sides in that conflict, both bad people in the monarchy and bad people in the republic as well. But that's a perfect example of, you know, revolutionaries coming to power and then doing some really bad things later on too. But anyways, that's pretty much it for this video. Hope you guys like my little history lessons when I talk about it. I do like to, you know, talk a lot about history. But I'll see you guys on the next one. Thank you guys for watching. Take care, everyone. Have a wonderful day, guys.